After my mother passed away, I learned that a local real estate group had deceitfully seized over 2,000 acres of our family farm while she was battling illness. They never realized I had full control of the region's electricity grid, given my role as a district energy supervisor. With that power at my fingertips, I was left to figure out how to use it against the people who had tarnished my mother's legacy. Returning to the valley where I grew up was the last thing I expected. After 15 years away, I found myself standing on the old wooden porch of our family house, holding the keys to the farmhouse. The weight of memories almost brought me to tears. "It's yours now," said David Thompson, my mother's lawyer, handing me a thick file. "All 2,000 acres of Westfield farmland, just as your mother wanted. A legacy built over generations." The wind swept through the fields, rustling the tall corn stalks, almost like they were bowing in reverence to her. Mom had fought hard to keep this farm, even when her health was failing. My fingers brushed the faded blue paint of the railing she'd always touched up every spring. The smell of the earth, the sound of the wind, all reminded me of her. But as I settled in to handle her affairs, the phone rang. As the regional energy supervisor for Eastwood Energy, my supervisors were unhappy about my sudden time off, but with Mom gone, handling her estate was my duty. Before I could unpack, a sharp knock echoed on the screen door. I opened it to find a sharply dressed woman with sleek blonde hair and a too-perfect smile, flanked by two men in matching jackets with a Westview Community logo. "You must be Sam Westfield's son," she said with a forced smile, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I'm Julia Harris, president of the Westview Homeowners Association. I'm so sorry for your loss." I blinked, confused. "Thanks," I said slowly. "But why is the HOA here? My mom's land isn't part of your neighborhood." Julia's smile tightened. "Actually, that's why we're here. There are some issues with property violations we need to discuss." "Violations?" "This land's been here since the early 1900s. Your neighborhood is barely 15 years old." She quickly corrected me. "Well, technically, the property was annexed into our jurisdiction 5 years ago, and while your mother didn't officially contest it, it's been filed in county records." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible." Julia handed me a stack of documents. "Your mother signed this agreement," she said confidently. The signature looked like my mother's, but something felt wrong. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. "I'm afraid so," she replied, glancing over at the nearby barn. "Those old farm vehicles violate storage codes. And that fence is also a problem. You've got 30 days to make the necessary changes, or we'll begin issuing fines." That night, I couldn't shake the unease I felt about Julia's papers. The documents seemed off, and I couldn't help but dig through my mother's locked filing cabinet. Hidden beneath old photo albums, I found a journal, its cover worn and marked with the words "Keep Fighting." Inside, I found entries about ongoing battles with the HOA, harassment about farm equipment, noise complaints about the rooster, and threats related to land boundaries. Worse, there were notes about the HOA changing property lines and trespassing on our land. My mother's last entry, written during her chemotherapy treatments, was heart-wrenching. "They're exploiting my illness. I just want to protect this land." One entry stood out, a note from a local lawyer, Hannah Lewis. It simply said, "Call me when you're ready." As I pondered these new discoveries, a car slowly drove by, its headlights off. It was Julia, snapping photos of the property from the comfort of her luxury car. I decided to compare the documents she'd given me with my mother's authentic signatures. They didn't match, not by a long shot. "This is a criminal case," Hannah said firmly when I showed her the documents and journal. "Those signatures are clearly forged. Should we file charges?" I asked. She looked troubled. "It won't be easy. The Westview HOA has powerful connections. Julia's husband, Tom, sits on the zoning board." The next morning, while I was dealing with an energy grid issue, I noticed someone, Cliff Parker, the HOA treasurer, erecting "no trespassing" signs deep inside our land, 50 feet into our cornfield. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharp with frustration. "We're having a meeting tonight about a new development project," he said, grinning smugly. "This land's not yours anymore." I could feel my anger rising. "Those documents you're using are fake." "I'll prove it." He scoffed. Prove it, then. We start construction in a week. You'll see. At the county office, I spoke with an old friend, Linda Gupta, who worked there. She confirmed that land boundaries have been altered multiple times over the last year, always expanding Westview's control. And the last round of changes have been made by none other than Tom Harris, Julia's husband. Later that evening, Julia sent me the new development plans. Westview Heights, a luxury housing project to replace our eastern fields. The construction was set to begin in just 5 days. But as the regional energy supervisor, I noticed a problem. There wasn't enough grid capacity to support the project. And who approved the grid changes? Me. The following day, Julia called, trying to discuss fence regulations. I interrupted her. Let's talk about the fraudulent land claims. I've seen the real records. You're bluffing, she said, her voice faltering. We'll see you at tonight's HOA meeting. That night, I presented irrefutable evidence of the forgeries and the dangerous overloads the development would cause to the grid. The crowd was stunned. Support quickly turned in my favor, and the project was put on hold. But Julia retaliated. Power to my house was mysteriously cut off, and soon, baseless accusations were flying, causing me to temporarily lose my job. Armed guards and bulldozers arrived on my property under an emergency court order signed by Julia's uncle, Judge Mason Harper. I hid in the old storm cellar that had once sheltered us during storms and found documents proving that our family had controlled the electrical grid for the entire region since the 1950s. My mother had made sure of it. In court, presenting the documents proved to be a game changer. The HOA's fraudulent schemes were exposed, and criminal investigations were launched. My job was reinstated, and the HOA leaders were arrested. Construction on Westview Heights was permanently halted. As the dust settled, neighbors came together to form a new democratic association. The land was legally protected, preserving my mother's legacy forever. Through all the chaos, I realized that true power doesn't come from wealth or control. It comes from standing up for what's right, no matter how difficult the battle, and having the courage to fight alone if necessary. In the end, the battle for my family's land became more than just a fight for acres and property rights. It was about reclaiming the dignity and values that my mother had worked so hard to preserve. For years, she had faced the relentless pressure of the HOA's exploitation, all while battling a terminal illness. Yet her resilience never faltered. Through her unwavering dedication to the land, she had laid the foundation for a legacy that I was determined to protect, even in her absence. When I returned to the valley, I never imagined that I would find myself up against such powerful opposition. But as the fight unfolded, I realized that the strength of my mother's spirit was within me. Armed with the truth and a deep sense of justice, I was able to outmaneuver the corrupt forces that sought to strip us of everything we held dear. It wasn't just my power as a regional energy supervisor that tipped the scales. It was the courage to stand up for what was right, to challenge the system, and to fight against those who believed their wealth and influence could rewrite history. As the Westview HOA was exposed for their fraudulent actions, it became clear that no matter how far-reaching the corruption, there will always be a force greater than money or power: the pursuit of truth. In the aftermath, my mother's farm became a symbol of resilience, not only for me, but for everyone in the community who had witnessed the battle. The land, now protected and secured for future generations, stands as a testament to the power of perseverance, honor, and standing up for what is just. It is a reminder that sometimes, in the face of overwhelming odds, it is the courage to keep fighting that ultimately preserves the legacies we hold most dear.